as a successful manga series that has been running for nearly 8 years, it's not surprising to see My Hero generate numerous spin-offs. We've seen a successful anime, some movies, special gag mangas, light novels, and even an official collaboration with Marvel to promote Avengers Infinity War in Japan. I wish I could show you more about that, but it looks like it's basically been scrubbed off the internet, but it was mostly the voice actors talking about which Marvel characters they like the most. But easily in this transmedia umbrella of My Hero content, the most substantial piece of content has been the My Hero Academia Vigilantes, a long-running series which is recently wrapped up. Previously, some people have asked me to cover it, so here I am now. As the final video of My Hero Month 2022, we are finally delving into the world of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. So strap up, get ready to hit the streets. Don't worry about having your hero license, because you don't need it where we're going. You gotta love to be gone back yet. Don't you grab it. So in the My Hero Academia world, all superhero work has to be handled by licensed professionals. To be a hero, you gotta get your quirk registered and pass the hero training exam to get a provisional hero license. It's one of the aspects of My Hero's world building that I've always found the most interesting and enjoyable. The idea of the kind of bureaucracy that comes with hero work. But what if you want to be a hero, but you don't want to have a license, or just can't get one? But you still want to help with the use of your quirk. That's where the world of Vigilantes comes in, showcasing a group of people who use their quirks to patrol their community and safeguard it, but don't have the proper hero licenses. Good old-fashioned American comic vigilante justice. Originally, this spin-off was conceived by Tetsuya Sato, one of the editors of My Hero, who reached out to artist Betancourt and writer Hideyuki Furuhashi, then pitched the idea to Horikoshi, who provided the final green light. Horikoshi had apparently been a fan of Betancourt's art, and so the spin-off ran from 2016 all the way to this year, ending with its final chapter in May of 2022. Originally published in Jump Giga before moving its way to the Jump Plus digital magazine. So for all purposes, I'd say as these spin-offs go, it was pretty successful. So Vigilantes technically serves as a prequel to My Hero Academia, taking place 5 years before the events of the mainline series. It follows 3 lead characters, Koichi Hamawari, who is a college student who, like Deku, admires the heroics of All Might and aspires to be like him by trying to use his seemingly useless quirk of being able to glide on the ground to help aid his community, all while wearing an All Might hoodie. Next is Knuckle Duster, a mysterious masked man who patrols the streets seemingly without a quirk to dispatch good old-fashioned American-style Frank Miller-approved two-handed justice. But there's more than meets the eye to this vigilante, but I'll avoid discussing that for now and save it until we start going into some deeper spoilers. The last of the 3 main trio is Pop Step, or as she's known by her civilian name, Kazuho Hanayama, a girl who uses the leap quirk to float in the air and give impromptu concerts in the streets. Out of the 3, she's probably my least favorite. I mean, I guess she counts as a vigilante or even a villain because she uses her quirk for selfish purposes and her own gain, but technically she doesn't really fight crime. It just seems to mostly run around in a revealing miniskirt to show off her ass in fan service moments, and also get into one of my least favorite anime and manga tropes, which is to act as the tsundere love interest to the main guy. What makes Vigilantes interesting in regards to My Hero is that every chapter is Horikoshi's seal of approval, so the canon of Vigilantes is more tightly aligned with the My Hero manga than, say, something like the Garrison Girl young adult novel tie-in for Attack on Titan that did not feature much intervention from series creator Hajime Ishiyama. Hell, I bet if you ever met Ishiyama in the streets, he probably couldn't even name the main character of Garrison Girl. I can't, and I could just look it up on Wikipedia. But that's how little I care, because I know it was written before the basement reveal, and to me, all of the most interesting stuff doesn't happen until we get into that damn basement. But Horikoshi's fingerprints can be felt all over this. A big thing that is introduced early on in the Vigilantes run is the introduction of the trigger drug, which causes quirks to go out of control. It becomes a big part of the series storyline, and eventually even makes its way into the main series, along with the 3rd My Hero movie as well. Another thing that My Hero Vigilantes does a great job of featuring a lot of the Pro Hero extended cast. Characters like Ida's brother, Shoto Aizawa, Present Mike, Rabbit Girl Mirko, Miss Midnight, Fat Gum, Best Genus, characters we don't get to spend much time with or see much in the main series outside of minor supporting roles, all get extended action sequences that help make them feel like more fuller, fleshed out characters. The series even goes as far as to give the critical origin stories to fan favorite characters like the hero killer Stain who starts out as a vigilante cleaning up the streets, searching for real heroism before he starts to take on a much darker role. He even has a really fun sequence where he gets to fight a bunch of Yakuza members who are themed after the Avengers. Aizawa even gets an origin story where we see him back in his school days with Present Mike and his dead friend Shirakumo. A sweet and pleasant flashback that's so good it feels like it should have been used either in the manga itself or the anime of the main series, back when he discovers that Kurogiri is actually built from the corpse of his friend, Shirakumo, to take advantage of his powerful cloud quirk. A scene that would have held a lot more weight if we, the audience, knew about the shared backstory. And just a little aside, I do enjoy this backstory a lot, especially because Shirakumo dies from getting hit in the head from some debris. I always like it when we see the fantastical settings where the real danger is just benign shit that can happen just as easily in real life. Even in the fantastical superhero world of My Hero, getting hit in the head with a stray brick can be just as lethal as it is in ours. I mean, we got all these superpowered battles with crazy external carnage. Not everyone is going to get a super dramatic death like twice. Sometimes you're just the unfortunate guy who gets hit with some rubble to the head. It's this kind of background that does a great job of enhancing the main series with a little bit more depth, and I think it's the fact that Horikoshi ultimately had to sign off on each chapter as opposed to just licensing out the IP that shows a greater degree of love and care than you typically see in these spin-offs. One thing that also helps separate Vigilantes from My Hero is the fact that generally the characters are older. Koichi isn't a high school kid, he's a college guy who also has college responsibilities. The fact that we aren't confined to a high school also means that the storytelling is a little bit darker and a bit more mature than what you get in My Hero. Not to say My Hero is entirely bereft of dark moments and intense art filled with violence and gore, but the high school setting always seemed to kind of hold things back in terms of what you could do with sexuality along with the violence. For a bunch of teenagers who spend most of their time hanging around in tight-skinned supersuits, the class of 1A mostly stays pretty asexual. Well, with the exception of everyone's least favorite purple pervert. None of the kids in 1A are looking much into dating. The central Deku and Ochika pairing is met with so much flustered blushing, which feels so chaste and frustratingly immature. I know it's kind of a common trope, main character and main girl can't be in a committed relationship or even discuss the idea of dating until the last chapter. It's always something I've found tedious and frustrating, not to say Vigilantes is entirely bereft of this, but the fact that we see characters go on a mixer event or even have a big love, interest, confessional moment to me are things that make it a slightly more mature edge than the main flagship series. It also has a villain who deploys evil cork bees from her vagina, so there's that. But a big charm of the series is how it really builds a sense of place and community within the fictional Nararata district. The main character, Koichi, helps battle against people who've been given the trigger quirk boosting drug and are forced to go berserk. The first minor villain, Punk Suga, becomes a supporting player who aids Koichi with his vigilantism. Several of the monster-transformed people stick around in town and even form a cat cafe. Over time, this does a great job of making the main setting feel like a vibrant, living local community as the supporting cast grows and sticks around. It's the one thing I wish Deku would have learned in his Hero Academia journey. The ability to help use his powers to reform people. I thought that's what was going to happen after his fight with Gentle the Gentle Criminal, but seeing how he fell off the face of the earth, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And I still don't really see how the hell he intends to save Shigaraki from All for One, outside of hitting him really, really hard. But Koichi, with his mediocre power set, does manage to protect and preserve the people of his humble district, which in a way puts him above his main series counterpart, who at best just saves children, but doesn't have the power to save the bad guys from themselves. But now we gotta get to the elephant in the room, the one thing that holds My Hero Vigilantes back, and that's the art. Horikoshi might be a big fan of Betancourt, but I certainly am not. The whole manga is an extreme downgrade from what you'd typically expect from Horikoshi's work. Even the My Hero characters that make an appearance feel kinda slightly off. The art has a kind of what I ordered from Wish versus what I got from Wish kind of vibe. Like fan art reproductions, but what really is the kiss of death are all the original new characters that have all this Naruto filler character energy, if I'm being generous. They just look so flat and basic and kind of boring, at least from a design standpoint. I'm not the best at verbally articulating artistic criticism, but I think it's not hard to see a big difference when you compare some of the original characters, like Captain Celebrity, or even some of the background people of the Naharata district, to even some of the less memorable side guys of My Hero, who all look great and distinctive, which can sometimes hurt the storytelling. Like take the aforementioned Captain Celebrity. He's a very interesting contrast to All Might, given that he's a disgraced American superhero who was forced to go to Japan due to numerous controversies of him hooking up with supermodels and acting like the worst aspects of his namesake. His design is just so basic, it feels like what an 8-year-old would scribble out of their expectation of what a superhero should look like, after getting one of those shitty how to draw comic superhero art books. The worst thing about Captain Celebrity is that we get very little of him interacting with All Might, which would have been a fascinating contrast. The number one hero seems inspired from the cheesy greatness of Silver and Gold Age comics, meaning a real-life American hero who's kind of a dirty D-bag. I will say this, the one thing that makes Captain Celebrity kind of interesting is the fact that eventually you do get to see a backstory and get to see his wife, who's kind of the short, frumpy thing who he fell in love with because she was the first person who treated him like shit, despite the fact that everyone else loved him, which is kind of funny and endearing, especially when we get a flashback of their romance as Captain Celebrity gets his one big plus ultra hero moment. But I think one thing that has kind of held people back from really embracing this story is the art. It's several grades lower than what we've seen from Horikoshi. I'd say that for all of the storytelling mishaps and shortcomings, one thing that has managed to keep My Hero going for so long is Horikoshi just doing absolutely fantastic looking extreme art. I kind of hope that if he does do a new series after My Hero finishes up, he does something based around horror, because he's great at doing graphic gore and body horror. But I think the underdog status in terms of art presentation could also work as an advantage. Just like its lead protagonist Koichi, we underestimate the series just as people underestimate Koichi's heroics due to his kind of mediocre quirk. And through hard work and perseverance, as Koichi evolves his gliding into shooting a projectile and eventually the ability to fly, much like its hero, the series develops a sort of underdog charm. Although, probably I think the single best element is Koichi's mentor, the infamous Knuckle Duster. So spoilers to come if it's something you care about for a series I'm going to bet most of you haven't bothered reading. Knuckle Duster is introduced to us as the kind of vigilante that defined many a Frank Miller or dark, edgy comic from the 80s. The kind of hero who would patrol back alleys and search for hoodlums and vagrants before giving them 2 fists of justice. What makes him interesting initially is the fact that he doesn't have a quirk, but still keeps doing his vigilante heroics. First, it's to save his daughter, who's been possessed by a swarm of killer bees due to one of All for One's villainous quirk experiments. He sacrifices his body and uses illegal hero tech to extract the queen bee from her eye. All this just to make up to his nearly catatonic wife about the promise to bring their daughter back after having pushed her away. But there are more layers to this onion. We learned that previously he was a well-known hero known as O'Clock, who used his acceleration quirk to become one of the most respected heroes of his generation, which basically turned him into a speedster like the Flash. But during his investigations, he caught the eye of One for All, who took away his quirk and bestowed it upon one of his experiments, the main villain of the series, Number 6. Throughout the series, he serves as a guiding force and mentor to Koichi to show him how to be a hero, but later on we learn the truth that his mentorship was also a lie in his final letter to Koichi. Koichi, if you're reading this letter, that means you're caught up in some kind of trouble. It's possible that I'm to blame. First, I'd like to apologize. If my business has somehow come back to bite you, I'm sorry about that. That's the one thing, Koichi. You remember what I said the day we met? I said, I'll make a true blue hero, but that was a lie. It was just a way to get through to you at the time. I deceived you. To start with, what is a hero? Someone who utilizes their exceptional quirk for the benefit of society. Someone who provides a good example of how to live while being true to their own quirks. In other words, the embodiment of harmony between quirk and society. That's what we're told anyway. I knew a hero like that once, a man who specialized in fighting crime. Sometimes he'd fly solo, sometimes he'd work with the police. But either way, he was responsible for taking down an impressive number of illegal organizations. But at the end of the day, he was no more than a particularly efficient cog in the machine meant to uphold societal order. He lacked the ability to deviate from the system or deal with entities that eclipsed common understanding. He lacked the means to struggle against the irrational or fight back against true evil. That's when a person's mettle is truly tested. When confronted with their own helplessness, most people abandon their ideals and let themselves go. Some fall into despair and become monsters, choosing instead to harm others. Meanwhile, the smallest fraction of the people, the rarest of the rare, manage to hold on to their goodness and humanity. Depending on the individual, remaining a good person can be unimaginably hard. It's the ones who overcome that struggle that I call heroes. You have that goodness within you, Koichi. You're someone who never misses a chance to help others. In fact, I'm one of the people you saved. The day we met, I said, I'll make a true hero out of you, but that was a lie. You didn't need me to tell you what you should do. You always had that answer yourself. You're one of the rare ones, born with the unshakable goodness within. A true hero. My hero. I know that you can do it, and I know that you will. Don't doubt yourself. Just act. Fly, Koichi. Fly, my hero. Just learn how to land properly when you fall. I think this is a great message that a true hero isn't defined by how they react when they are a functioning cog in a working system, but how they react when they have nothing, when they lose everything. For Knuckle Duster or O'Clock or Iowa Ogura, it was to fall into a drunken malaise and lose his wife and daughter. But for someone like Koichi, who was mostly shit upon, he never lost that innate goodness. His hero heroics weren't from the fact that he learned to fly, but because he learned from falling down so much. It's this underdog aspect that kind of flows through the whole series as a whole, because let's face it, we live in a transmedia world where big popular properties have tie-ins and spin-offs, but let's be honest, most of the time those expansions of material do very little to expand or enrich their universes. Take a look at the Halo franchise, which has the central video game but dozens of different comics and novels, all designed to expand the lore. But how many of those stories feel integral to the universe? How many of those have felt memorable or even vital? At best, all the transmedia offered in Halo has felt like filler fluff, or at worst, we've seen the series buckle and strain when it tries to incorporate all of its materials, like the disastrous Halo 5 campaign, which was built around so many other characters that were featured or introduced in other stories, it could barely stand on its own two legs. I think that's the remarkable thing about Vigilantes. I wouldn't say it's the deepest expansion of the My Hero world, but it does a great job of supporting the fiction and characters that we never got to see in the main universe. Enriching characters like Aizawa, giving fan-favorite characters like Mirko and even Rappa, the arena fighter guy, some time to shine while still maintaining its own story. I will say that some of the slice-of-life stuff does get a little tedious. Like, do we really need several damn chapters devoted towards the Nararata Festival showcasing Pop Step and some other characters doing, like, committee decisions about activities and merchandise? Gonna be honest, when I was initially reading this and we reached that section of the chapters, I dropped the series hard and left it to the waste bin of time because I just thought it was a little bit too tedious and boring. And believe me, I can really enjoy slice-of-life stuff when it's done well. But to its credit, there is a payoff later on, but this middle section of chapters were so tedious, there's a reason why I waited so long to dive back into this series and cover it. But I think the underdog nature of the art and storytelling is something that enriches its charm. It's a spin-off that perfectly enriches the main series and complements it while not superseding or supplanting it. So if you haven't already read it or are still interested in the My Hero universe and haven't completely given up on it for the new generation series like Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and Chainsaw Man, I'd recommend taking some time to check back into the world of Vigilantes. You might find yourself pleasantly surprised like I was, especially with the bombastic final arc where the underdog gets to take the stage, fighting alongside the most prominent heroes in the series. And with this video, we bring My Hero Month 2022 to a close. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If I go by the numbers, Stanley Tucci certainly didn't, which to be honest was something that didn't surprise me. The series has had a great deal of waning popularity recently, with shinier new-gen titles taking the forefront of the shonen anime world. Part of me has even thought about discontinuing My Hero Month altogether, just because from a sheer practical standpoint, it's not worth the time to cover. But I'm a stubborn guy who likes rituals and traditions, so I'll probably keep doing it until the anime reaches its inevitable conclusion. And if my instincts are right, we'll probably be Season 7 if Horikoshi ends it during his current manga arc that's running right now. As always, if you like what you saw, pay tribute to the greatest hero and villain of YouTube, the most beloved and hated man on the website, Stanley Tucci.
Algorithm! Math!
It's through his powers of algorithms and math that hold the key to my future as a content creator. So like, subscribe, and comment if you want to see me make anything My Hero related outside of My Hero Month. The future of My Hero Month is in his hands, but the actual buttons are in yours. Like One for All, only it's computer buttons, and you gotta click them to pass on the power of algorithms and math. A special thank you to my patrons who support my content making endeavors. I hope you'll consider joining them so you can support my videos, so you can see them early, as well as some secret videos I will never publish. So see you around whenever I put out my next video, and thanks for watching.